World of Warcraft is filled with mysteries. Some small and localized, and others potentially world-shattering. It is these mysteries that keep us coming back to the world. The constant wonder and wanderlust. In many ways, World of Warcraft is an old story that has been in telling for over 2 decades. In others, it is a story that has barely just begun. Of all mysteries in World of Warcraft, none is older and more mysterious than that of the Dragon Isles. First rumored and teased in WoW Classic, players like me have spent years wondering about these isles. What is their significance? Where are they? And why have we never been there? In WoW Dragonflight, at least one of these questions will be answered. But there are so many more that remain. To understand the significance of the Dragon Isles, we must first look at the very history of those who called it home. To many players, the Dragon aspects are a well-known story of Azeroth, but the aspects really only scratches the surface of the Dragon story. Much of their exact creation, as well as their earliest history, is marred in secrecy. We do know that the Dragon aspects were once Protodrakes, who helped the Titan Keeper Tyr bring down the corrupted Protodrake known as Galakrond. It's worth mentioning that the exact origins of Galakrond is unknown. Propaganda suggests that he is the progenitor of dragons. Some accounts suggest that cannibalism is at play, but that is at best a working theory. If my Discord is to be believed, then things can get crazy there. The Titan Keepers Tyr and Odin were experimenting on Galakrond, and this led to his insatiable hunger. The latter part does have a ring of truth to it. Remember Gahun? Yeah. They love their experiments, and it's not beyond the scope of imagining that Galakrond would have been one such thing. Before we continue, I would like to give a massive shout out to all the patrons, Twitch subs, and YouTube members that support this channel. To support, simply click the link in the description down below. For us to understand the creation of the Dragon aspects, and in turn, the significance of the Dragon Isles, we must first understand the creation of the Protodrakes. This is where things get slightly murky. Before there were Dragon aspects, there were Protodrakes. Descended from the elemental planes, they managed to escape imprisonment and remained on Azeroth. From the lore, we know that Protodrakes weren't the majestic creatures we know today, but rather feral and vicious. The earliest accounts also seem to suggest that some were driven purely by instinct, whereas others were far more intelligent. Could this have been down to a purity in creation? Perhaps an evolutionary trait tied to a more diet-based explanation? Maligos believe that their superior intellect was simply the next step in their natural evolution. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Before we can continue though, I should potentially contradict myself and clarify that there could be a possible retcon to the creation of the Protodrakes, where instead of being purely created by the elemental planes, their creation was partly elemental and partly light. As with all lore in World of Warcraft, the retcon either is or it isn't. It really depends on how you read the chronicles and also which writer picks up the pen next. Anyway, I digress. The different types of Protodrakes may be one of the first clues to understanding why some dragons would become aspects and why others would remain more feral and Protodrakey. The main types of Protodrakes would be red, blue, green, bronze, and black. Now, if the above is known as purebloods, then it is worth mentioning that at least one more intelligent drake existed, a green drake with purple entrails, but their only known representative fell to Galakrond in kind of a suicide mission. From the ancient lore, we also know, and this is where this list gets quite bulky, that the purebloods, as I've termed them, are also joined by blue-green, blue-white, orange, yellow, charcoal grey, dust brown, silver, gold, copper, silver green, and most likely even more we have never heard of. there is also some evidence to suggest that due to the close link with the primordial and elemental powers of Azeroth, these protodrakes were incredibly vulnerable to outside sources of power and corruption. They tend to adopt their corruption or adapt to it quite successfully. An example of this would be the plague protodrakes that were corrupted by the Blight and Undeath. We see Deathwing himself experimenting on the Dragonflights as well as protodrakes to varying degrees of success, suggesting the protodrakes really have a unique skill in attaining and wielding sources of power around them. This unique skill seems to, at least in part, support the elemental origins story. Then again, the lore seems to suggest that Ysera and Alexstrasza were sisters from the same clutch, so who knows? Remember our earlier question? Why were some more intelligent than others? Well, could we argue that purity of the elemental connection has something to do with this? Of all the protodrakes in existence, only 5 were ever deemed intelligent enough, or perhaps brave enough, to become aspects. These dragons we would eventually know as Alexstrasza, Nostormu, Meligos, Naltharion, and Ysera. So what about the more ancient ones? Could it be that the mixture of elemental magics, of colors such as silver and blue-green, caused too much interference? Perhaps the protodrakes of these flights were too chaotic and unstable to ever be relied upon to defend Azeroth. That said, why only those 5? Green protodrakes still exist even now, which means not all green drakes were considered intelligent enough to become aspects or dragons. If we look to the elemental planes of Azeroth and the elemental lords of Azeroth, chaos seems to be at the order of the day. During Azeroth's early years, it is said the planet consumed nearly all spirit, most likely consuming the elemental lord of spirit alongside it. This imbalance caused much chaos within the other realms. Add to this the corruption of the old gods, and the elemental planes of Azeroth have been in disarray literally since its inception. If the protodrakes really did come from these elemental planes, then that would explain why the proto-flights with more mixtures of elemental magics would likely be in a constant state of chaos, whereas the purer flights, quote-unquote, had the ability to develop thought processes and intelligence. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. After the fall of Galakrond, the Keeper tier argued that the Keepers of Azeroth should bless the dragons, since they have proven themselves capable of defending Azeroth. Odin, unsurprisingly, did not agree. Yet the other Keepers decided to forge ahead anyway. Aman'Thul blessed Nostormu and the Bronze Dragonflight with dominion over the Timeways and tasked the newly created Bronze Dragonflight with defending the strands of time. Eonar would bless both Alexstrasza and Ysera respectively with the gift of life and the dream. Thus the Red Dragonflight of Alexstrasza was born, tasked with preserving life on Azeroth, and the Green Dragonflight of Ysera with dominion over the Emerald Dream. Norgannon would bless Meligos and the Blue Dragonflight with power over the arcane and magic of the world, linking them to the ley lines of the Titan they were tasked to protect. Finally, Kaskaroth would bless Naltharion and the Black Dragonflight with the power of Azeroth herself, tasked to watch over the land and deep places of the world. These blessings also came with incredible burden. While it is true that they were now more powerful than any protodrake, they were also cursed. It is said that Naltharion could feel the weight of every stone and mountain of Azeroth pressing down upon him, splintering and cracking his body. But this curse would also be the source of his greatest strength. All of this to answer a single question. What were they created for? When the old gods have finally corrupted the Titan Azeroth, they would bring about the end of all life, and the Dark Titan would be born. This, in a nutshell, dodging every single piece of contradictory lore concerning the Hour of Twilight is what the dragons were made for. To stop the birth of a Dark Titan. Now that we know the origin stories of the dragon aspects, let's turn our attention to their seat of power, the Dragon Isles. An important note here, the word for creating and ordering is the same in the Titan language, which makes the exact origins of the Dragon Isles quite the mystery. The Dragon Isles were either created out of nothing and given to the aspects as their places of power, or it was an existing part of Northrend, most likely, given its geographical location, and then repurposed as the Dragon Isles. Or perhaps it was always its own landmass? Luckily, the exact origins of the Isles aren't all that important. The real question is, what was their purpose? What was it made for, and why was it hidden away? These are the real questions we need to ask ourselves. The easiest answer here is that the Dragon Isles were always the home of the Proto-Drakes, and that once the aspects were created, the Isles became their seat of power. Easy answers, however, really aren't much fun. So let's suit up and dive into some speculation, shall we? We are told that the dragons are making their way back to the Isles to re-establish their power. Remember at the end of Cataclysm, the dragon aspects sort of sacrificed their own power to bring down Deathwing using the Dragon Soul? Kind of stopping the whole Hour of Twilight, the thing that they were made for? This is kind of where my mind started turning. Why the Isles? I mean, if the dragons were in fact blessed by the Titans themselves, then surely the ability to regenerate that power would be solely unto themselves. Perhaps we should look at the Titan influence on Azeroth. The Titans love their places of power. Ungoro Crater, Sholazar Basin, every single one of the forges and engines scattered throughout Azeroth, maybe even some forges and engines we don't know about. Most of what the Titans ever created would always be fueled in part by Azeroth herself. Therefore, links to the core of the planet would always be required for this continued process. As such, I propose a new theory of what the Dragon Isles are, is, were, could be. Not sure. Inside each of the dragon layers is a source of the Titans' original blessing, the place of their power. If the now depleted dragon aspects want to be fully restored, it is necessary to re-establish the link between them and the Dragon Isles. This would explain why the Dragon Isles had to be hidden after the aspects left. A place of such incredible power would be a juicy target for the old gods in their fight against the aspects for the soul of Azeroth. But how was it hidden? Surely if the dragons called it home for so very long, and in the past, they would often leave their home. The fight with Accolonn, for example, did not take place on the Isles, so we have evidence that while drakes may have originated on the Isles, they were certainly not confined to them. I mean, they can fly, by the way, so obvi. So why would dragons be unable to find their home without the beacon? To this I believe that the beacon doesn't only hide a place, but instead moves it. This could either be to a new pocket dimension or simply moving it in time. So the Dragon Isles is still the Dragon Isles and it stands where it stands, but just not when it stands? After all, Tyr did say to Malygos that they, meaning the Keepers, are not of this world. So it is possible that the Tower of Tyr moved places in time or maybe even in space. This would explain why the dragons would be unable to find their home without the beacon being lit, but also why they were able to show up so quickly. The dragons could sense life returning to Azeroth, since they are tied closely to the planet itself and therefore started their journey home. However, until the beacon is lit, they cannot actually be home. There is another bit of information that suggests that pocket dimensions may in fact be in use on Azeroth. Consider this. Not a single soul has ever been able to sail around the dark side of Azeroth. Anyone who has ever attempted it has yet to return. So this means that either there are innumerable dangers on the other side of Azeroth, big sea monsters and things, or perhaps the area we call home on Azeroth is sealed away to protect the beings of Azeroth from the dangers without. Either way, this could at least in part explain the hiding of the Dragon Isles. Bigger questions arise though. Why hide the Isles? The lore as it stands suggests that the ley lines originate from the Nexus. It also heavily implies that ley lines shift and move over time, hence why the map from Norgannon had to be updated constantly. There is another theory, however. Mine, by the way. What if the ley lines originated from the Dragon Isles and not from the Nexus, as was previously believed? This would explain why Meligos was so hellbent on bringing all the ley lines towards himself, why he believed that doing so would help him regain all of his power. For the old gods, this would have been the ultimate location to tap into the very lifeblood of Azeroth. For all other foes, this would give them an easy way to destroy Azeroth. Perhaps this also explains why Sargeras did not instantly attack at the end of Legion? Why he spent so much time just sort of hanging about? Perhaps he too was searching for the Isles. Consider the source of the Dragon Aspect's power, the blessings of the Titans. Could this be the home of artifacts carrying the very essence of the Dragon Aspects? Could this be why the Aspects are now returning home? We are told that the Green Dragonflight will seek to establish a new Aspect now that they are home. We also know that this is where the Black Dragonflight will find perhaps their own Aspect. A place that not only holds the origins of life on Azeroth, but also the power of her greatest protectors, would certainly warrant a very strong security system. And if you are seeking to hide something from the old gods, then removing it from the very planet they are tapped into would be a good idea. This, to my mind, also explains why we have never seen the Dragon Isles, and why no living mortal has ever set foot in the dragon's home. I will leave you with one final thought. 5 lanterns, now darkened. The flame they seek will light the Master's way. Could this whisper refer to the Dragonflights and their source of power? Could it be that the old gods found the Dragon Isles and slowly started poisoning the wells of the flights? Only time will tell, and in our next video, we will be diving into this very whisper and the end times. If you liked the video, you can thank the patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subs on the screen that support the channel and made all of this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace out, fam. To support, simply click one of the links in the description down below. No. That's horrible. Let me do it again. From the ancient lore, and this is where the list gets long, we also know that proto-drakes were joined by some as... Fuck. Never mind. We'll do that again. An Fuck. Alright, I missed that. We'll do it again. I don't know. I fucked it up. Great. Fuck. We'll go again. Alright. I think we'll just start the whole fucking passage again. Screw it. The main types of protodrakes... Never mind. We'll do it again. Remember our earlier question. What the hell was that phrasing? I'll take coffee and then we'll do this again. All of this to answer a single question. What were they created for? When the old gods finally corrupted the Titan Azeroth, they would bring about the end of all life, and the Dark Titan would be born. This, in a nutshell, dodging every single piece of contradictory lore concerning the Hour of Twilight. This is what the dragon aspects were created for. Stopping the birth of a Dark Titan. Well, that sucked. Alright, we'll do it again. Fuck it. The Dragon Isles were either created out of nothing and given to the aspects as their places of power, or it was an existing part of Northrend, most likely, given its geographical location. Blah, 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 blah. Fucking words, bro. Again. This would explain why the Dragon Isles had to be hidden after the aspects left. A place of such incredible power would be a very juicy target for the old guards. Guards? The fuck? Consider this. Not a single soul has ever been able to sail around the dark side of Azeroth. Anyone who has ever attempted it is yet to return. So this means that either there are an innumerable amount. Innumerable? Let's go again. This, to my mind, also explains why we never... Fuck. Go again. If you liked the video, you can thank the patron... If you like the video, you can thank the patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subs on the screen right now. Oh, fuck! No, again. Yeah, I like that one. We'll fucking stick with that one.